In 2002, Elon Musk was liquid. Having just sold Zip2 and PayPal, he walked away from the Silicon Valley boom with a massive personal fortune and no obligations. He intended to spend a portion of that wealth on the Live to Mars Foundation. The plan was to land a small greenhouse on the red planet to see if biological life could survive on this harsh, rocky surface. When he checked NASA's website for upcoming Mars missions to see how he could get his greenhouse there, he found nothing. The agency had no active plans to explore the planet, leaving a massive void in the future of space travel. Seeing that the path to the stars had stalled, Musk decided to manually restart the timeline. He moved forward with his own mission to Mars, despite having no viable business model. That mission required heavy-lift rockets. Musk traveled to Russia to negotiate for 3 vehicles, but the sellers held firm on a price of $8 million per rocket. The Russian markup highlighted a systemic barrier. The monopoly on launch vehicles kept space travel prohibitively expensive. This high cost of entry, more than the physical distance of the flight, was the primary hurdle to reaching Mars. Musk walked away from the deal and decided to build his own fleet. This required an initial investment of $100 million of his own money, a massive personal gamble to launch SpaceX in 2002. This pivot forced a software entrepreneur into the complex world of aerospace engineering. Musk was now attempting to independently manufacture rockets from scratch, betting his entire fortune that he could do it cheaper than a world superpower. In the startup world, this is the burn rate, how fast a company consumes cash before producing a product. At SpaceX, that chart plummeted. Between 2006 and 2008, 3 explosive launch failures caused massive vertical drops in his remaining capital. Because SpaceX was privately funded by Musk alone, these were not corporate write-offs or government-subsidized losses. These failures were direct multi-million-dollar hits to his personal bank account. The high burn rate turned standard engineering trials into a financial countdown. With every single failed launch, the critical window to succeed was closing fast, as his life's fortune rapidly vanished. By 2008, the situation was critical. 3 failed launches had left SpaceX with enough remaining cash for exactly 1 more attempt before the company would be forced to declare bankruptcy. The pressure was compounded by a crisis at his other company, Tesla. As seen in this blueprint in the background, he was struggling to keep his car company from collapsing during the global financial crisis. To keep the lights on, Musk began liquidating his personal assets. He sold his property and even his own car to scrape together the last bit of capital needed for a 4th SpaceX launch. The gamble had reached its absolute limit. Musk was no longer just risking a portion of his wealth. The next failure would result in his absolute and total financial ruin. This 4th launch was a do-or-die scenario for the company. If the rocket exploded, the SpaceX story would end there, and Musk's entire fortune would be wiped out. The infrastructure required to manage a launch is immense. As you look at the rows of technicians in this mission control center, remember that every job in this room and years of development work depended entirely on the next 10 minutes of flight. In late 2008, the engines ignited and Flight 4 pushed off the pad. The rocket held together through the stress of ascent, the stages separated, and for the first time, a SpaceX vehicle reached orbit. This successful orbit validated the entire low-cost design. It proved that Musk's approach was viable and provided the necessary leverage to begin pulling the company away from the edge of bankruptcy. The victory was immediately followed by a lifeline from NASA. With the technology finally proven, the agency awarded SpaceX a massive contract that provided the long-term stability the company desperately needed. That 2008 gamble changed the trajectory of the aerospace industry. SpaceX has gone from a failing startup to a primary supplier for NASA, with active plans to establish the first human colonies on Mars. Musk's decision to liquidate his personal belongings for that final attempt moved the project beyond a standard business venture. He had reached a point where the only way forward was to accept the high probability of absolute financial ruin. Looking at that choice, it's worth asking if you would have made the same bet. Would you have sold your last possessions to fund a 4th launch? Or would you have walked away after the 3rd explosion? Let us know in the comments.